The Keenan Allen disappointment, I do get it. It would be cool to get Keenan Allen. They did seem to offer more to get him. 3rd-round pick, pay his contract. The Bears only offered a 4th-round pick. So that's also very frustrating. But I still do not believe that the Houston Texans need more weapons for C.J. Stroud. I think they lost that game to the Baltimore Ravens because the Ravens were creating pressure up the middle, which was forcing Stroud to move out of the pocket. And by a result of that, he was unable to see some open receivers downfield. I'm not saying that the Texans receivers were open all game long, but that was a bad matchup for them. I don't think that a team that was without Tank Dell and yet still lit up the Cleveland Browns for a good portion of that playoff game. I do not think that this offense is so hamstrung by a lack of weapons that another receiver is the priority for the Texans in free agency the rest of the way. I just don't see it that way, and it's getting a lot of pushback, Joe.
I don't see it as a priority, but I do think something's going to happen. The fact that they were even in on the conversation with Keenan Allen, it just intrigues me. The idea of adding another wide receiver to this room, because Nick Caserio he's had a great offseason. He is, Grenard walks, they replace him with Hunter. You bring in Autry, you bring Shire. Like you have filled all your gaps pretty well, really everywhere except for corner. I heard part of his interview with P&P this morning talking about Kenyon Green and how this is really like their first offseason to fully evaluate Kenyon Green. I got the interpretation that meant that they're solid, at least at this point, with the offensive line. I thought the trade back was interesting because seemed a little early for me.
You didn't get to weigh in on that on Friday.
Yeah.
Official take, Joe George.
This is a really deep draft. And what they need most is interior offensive line, interior defensive line, safety, and corner. That screams 2nd round this year. And that's why trading out makes sense to me. At the same time, I wish they could have waited until draft day to make this deal. Because what if you're at 23 and Quinion Mitchell, the cornerback from Toledo, is your favorite player on the board, and for some reason he has fallen to you at 23? Nick Caserio could take him in that moment and be super happy. Caserio must just believe that this draft is deep enough that they could trade back right now. I was surprised. That shocked me. Now, I also don't think it means that they don't pick in the 1st round.
You think they could still trade back up?
Yes. That's because Nick Caserio, he loves to make trades. And if there's a specific player that he wants to go get, he'll go get him. But
I wonder if he would have to fall to the 2nd round for him to trade up. But I don't disagree. I think it's certainly possible for him to trade back up. Getting that extra 2nd round pick, we'll see if that ends up being a very good 2nd round pick. You're not expecting much out of the Vikings this coming season. So the 2025 pick should be probably close to a 1st round pick. So I like acquiring the extra capital there. What you're saying is probably what they're thinking. And to go back to what you were talking about, some of the things that they've hinted at, I know that after the season was done, they hinted that they needed a specific type of wide receiver who could get open. And trading for Keenan Allen is clearly a reflection of them believing that they can do better at the position. And I would just tell them straight up, I don't think you need to do that much better at the position. I think you got to rely and look at C.J. Stroud and say, yeah, he's pretty damn good. He's going to elevate the level of play of everybody around him, and that means that there are going to be some sacrifices on his side of the ball. That's the luxury you have with Stroud, and I understand this idea, and this is the, I guess, argument I'm getting in with, Joe, with Texans media people and fans alike who are wanting the Texans to go get another skill position player. I understand that you want to make C.J. Stroud's job easier. You want to make things easier to manage, but hasn't he shown you that he doesn't need them to be that easy? I mean, with what you saw from Stroud against the Browns, which was supposedly the best defense in the NFL, so that was at least told by a lot of these Cleveland jamokes, like going up to that game, he tore him up. Now, they were helped out, obviously, by Flacco throwing those pick sixes.
But he played great.
And the way the offense was moving, I feel like the offense would have continued to move. The game just completely fell apart for Cleveland so quickly because of the back-to-back pick sixes that they threw.
Yeah, and the thing with Keenan Allen, too, is he's 32. So it's not exactly he's a young player. Now he's had over 100 catches every year since 2019, except for in 2022. The touchdowns numbers aren't there. That's kind of an Andre Johnson thing, in my opinion, where he just hasn't always had the quarterback play consistently to get there. I know he's had Justin Herbert for a couple years now, but I like this move. I like the move for Chicago way more than I like it for if it would have been for the Texans, because Tank Dell and Nico Collins is a great wide receiver tandem. In Chicago, all you had was DJ Moore. Now you have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. You're much better off.
You used to have Chase Claypool.
Gross. I like Tank and Nico. I like the idea, the kind of the name that I've seen float out there the most by Texans fans is Lad McConkey, the wide receiver from Georgia.
What a name.
Is who they is. He's a stud. I'd rather just draft a wide receiver in the second round, frankly, and let this guy, whoever it is, I trust Nick Caserio that they're going to bring in a wide receiver in the draft, and he's going to beat out Noah Brown, and that he's going to cause you to cut Robert Woods. And I would rather just go about it that way than add.
But doesn't that hurt your ability to add at the corner and at safety and at interior offensive line?
Potentially. Yeah, it does. And that's where you have to go best position available.
I'm with you there. I don't think you should be married to any specific spot. If you feel like everybody from this pick 23 to 42 or whatever is around the same lines, then okay. Like you're probably not looking at one specific player unless you're crazy and like know the future or something like that. Like you got to have the sight to be able to say like, yeah, we're going to get this guy at 42.
Yeah, like the idea that like what Texans Twitter is mostly run with is that they're going to take Sean's guy, I'm guessing Tavondre Sweat, with the 42nd pick.
Well, yeah, everyone just goes with like, who's the local guy that we've heard of? Oh,
yeah.
They'll draft him. I also think that they're not done in free agency. Like they can fill one of the, we're talking about the holes at either defensive tackle, especially cornerback. To me, it's like, if you're going to have to depend on a cornerback to start, I don't think you can draft him in the second round, because if you're starting a rookie cornerback, he's probably going to be good. And if you have that kind of skill set, you're going to go before pick 42. So that's the one where you either re-sign Steven Nelson or just the next Steven Nelson, veteran on his second, third team type of guy who you feel good starting, but isn't too expensive. So that does take some of the like big glaring needs off the board when they do come around to pick, and then maybe they can spend some of that draft capital on receiver, which is more of a luxury, making a strength stronger type position.
Yeah, it's just gonna be interesting to see how it all plays out, because the trade was just early in the process.
That was the most surprising thing.
Yeah,
You wanted it to be a draft night trade.
No, well,
that's what no. On Friday, that's what I wanted. Selfishly, I'm like, give us at least a first round pick to talk about.
I don't want blue balls on Thursday. I don't want deep steel blue balls thinking they're going to do something only for them to trade out. No, I like knowing now.
Do it like the week before the draft.
I mean, I kind of like that they did it now, for like selfishly from a programming standpoint, because are we going to do a draft show now? They don't have a first round pick.
Well, we could.
Like do a second round draft show.
But I would rather.
Are we about that life?
But I would rather know now than like on draft night, be like, oh, we're gonna do this big draft show. Texans picking 23rd.
Then we're talking about the Jimmy Johnson trade value chart
and
how much they won the trade by trading back.
Well, I mean, we have the tools. We can make it happen. Tools like Jeremy Branham, who can come on and say that this is a day that will live in infamy because they.
I know I missed
When you say tools, what do you mean by that?
I mean Jeremy, my friend, also a tool.
Yeah,
like a wrench or.
Let's make sure we send that to Brian for who said it this week.
We have the tools. We have the technology.
We might get a text.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Jeremy's a big listener.
No, you don't think he's in his car right now driving?
No, I like Jeremy's philosophy of radio. He listens to as little as possible, so that way he can't be accused of stealing takes.
I mean, you can still be accused of it. But
well, he does get accused of it all the time. But
you can still do it, too.
It just means you're innocent.
Oh, he just says, I don't listen. Oh, look at me.